and for the next 24 hours. GDP or gross domestic product growth projected at 7% in the financial year 2019-2020. That is what the economic survey says. The economic survey that was tabled in Parliament by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman this morning. Now, that is a projection that is higher than the growth rate of 6.8% last year, which was the lowest in 5 years. Let's go across to Sanket Upadhyay for more on this. Sanket, now the economic survey is really just advice, a technocrat's advice to the government. It doesn't really mean that the government has to act on it or the government will act on it, but it sounds very ambitious when you're saying 7% growth when we saw the lowest growth rate last year at 6.8. So what exactly are the measures that the survey recommends for how exactly we're going to hit that magic number of 7%?
So, before I begin answering your question, the first part of your question was that the economic survey is an advice given by a technocrat to the government. Let me tell you that most of the big bang reforms, not just in the Modi government, but even in the past, whether it is the cash transfer, back in the day, issues related to opening up the economy, all of them, by the way, for the first time found mention in this very report. So that is why this report, or this advice, if you were, is very, very important and taken very seriously, particularly in the government. Now, let's talk about 2 or 3 things first. We've widely reported as to what the economic survey says. We want to tell you what KV Subramanian, who's the chief economic advisor, has said right now. He has tweeted, he says, a blueprint for the economy, 5 trillion. Looking beyond the economics of equilibrium, survey makes case for investment-driven virtuous cycle to sustain a growth at 8%. Investment is going to be the key driver of simultaneous growth in demand, jobs, exports and productivity. So as far as the vision is concerned, this really is it. I have with me Himanshu Shekhar, who has a copy of the economic survey. It's been pretty difficult to lay your hands on this copy, Himanshu, but what are the key highlights?
Well, the most important thing is there in the very first page of the volume 2, which I have now. And I just want to read 2 lines from this.
Sure,
it says that for the global economy, the year 2018 was difficult, with the world output growth falling from 3.8% in 2017 to 3.6% in 2018. Growth rate of world output is projected to fall further to 3.3% in 2019. Now, this is bad news for India. This refers to the challenge that India will have to face, because if there is a slowdown in the global economy, that of course will affect India as well. And we know that from January to March this year, the economic growth rate has been just 5.8%, which is the lowest in last 17 quarters. So after this projection of 5.8%, there has been a lot of talk about economic slowdown in India. Prime Minister held several meetings with economists, with financial experts, has brainstormed with government officials on what government actually needs to do now to actually bring back the growth sentiment in the economy.
Okay, so one of the things, Himanshu, that this report talks about is that this 5.8% growth, which we saw in the last quarter, is an aberration. It says that this could perhaps be due to the uncertainty related to the elections. But now it predicts 7% growth in FY20.
It says that manufacturing sector is expected to recover much faster now. It talks about the fact that investment rate is finally recovering. You see, one of the key problem with Indian economy, the reason why there is a slowdown, is that investments are drying up, public and private investment both. And that is why when the pre-budget consultation meetings were held by FM with industrialists, economists, one single point that was made to the FM is that in your budget, you have to address the question of investment. If the investments don't come in the economy, then new projects will not be launched. And if the new projects are not launched, the job creation, which is a huge problem for this government that it has to deal with, cannot be addressed. So the most important thing that both industry and economists are looking forward in this budget is a roadmap to kickstart investments in the economy. Okay. Now, from where the investments will come, the one hurdle that she has to address is the NPA issue in the banking sector. And the economists have said that if you don't address the NPA issue, then industry won't get the credit that it wants. SHM has in fact demanded a stimulus package for the banking and financial sector.
The report talks about a dip in the NPAs. Right, this report does talk about it.
But then this problem has been very acute for the government, and they have to keep addressing this issue. Of course, there is a dip in the NPAs, but still it is more than 9% now. Correct. And that is why it is important that the NPAs issue is seriously addressed by FM in a budget, and that is, I think, in a way also mentioned. It also talks about the fact that the growth rate in agriculture is tapering. Alok Pandey did report yesterday that there are parts of UP where the sowing is much behind schedule.
Correct.
Normally at this time, the amount of area which is sown, there is a decline in this. And I did interview the Agriculture Minister yesterday where he said that the slowdown, the delay in the monsoon is a serious issue for us. And as and when the state governments will demand help from the center, we're ready to give help to them. So government is aware of the fact that in agriculture, where Economic Survey did talks about the tapering growth in agriculture, it was 2.9%. In fact, the growth rate in agriculture had declined to 2.9% in the last 3 quarters of this year. So this is another major challenge.
Okay.